Anthony Weiner's wife, Huma Abedin, is finally leaving him. She just announced today that they are in fact separating. Now, this is the straw that broke the Weiner's back. The former New York congressman caught yet again sending racy images to a woman who is not Huma Abedin. He was also talking dirty to her online. Tell me if this sounds familiar. The New York Post broke the story, of course, and published the eventual pictures. Post saying this is a shot of Weiner with his young son in the background. And here is Weiner's pen pal. She gave the pictures to the paper. By the way, the Post says she is in fact a Trump supporter. And Trump did not waste any time to pounce on the story, saying that Abedin is better off without Anthony Weiner. He also said Hillary Clinton showed bad judgment, letting Weiner have close proximity to classified information. Nonetheless, the question comes down to, on a human level, why would anyone, let alone Anthony Weiner, given his history, keep doing this? Is he just self-destructive, or is it more than that? And to help us answer those questions and more, psychologist Dr. Bart Rossi. He joins us now, and you cannot make this stuff up, doctor. And I guess my first question is this guy just a narcissist, or is he self-destructive? I mean, is this just a predilection, or is this an addiction?
Well, it's an addiction, first and foremost. I always like to say as a clinical psychologist that we all have different sides to our personality, and certainly some of these sides need a lot of work. We all have that issue. But with Anthony Weiner, he has a certain side to his personality that he cannot moderate. He can't modulate it. He doesn't know how to handle it. He can't contain it. And that's an obsession. He's obsessive compulsive. He has a mental set that's a problem for him, and he doesn't know how to cope with it. And that's what we're seeing. You know,
the first time we all know what happened with Anthony Weiner. The second time our own Dominic Carter was doing the interview where he admitted yet again that this might have been ongoing in his mayoral campaign. But when I see this stuff and I hear, you know, Tiger Woods going in for sex therapy and the rest, part of me, doctor, says, give me a break. These guys are just idiots who got caught and are looking for some addiction to blame their problems on. At what point does it go from idiocy to really an addiction? I mean, are we saying this guy couldn't keep himself off of social media?
Yeah, I would actually link this to someone who, as you know, has a gambling problem. They know they're losing all their money. They know they're going to lose it all and go broke, but they can't stop it. They know it. They think about it, and yet they can't stop it. And with Weiner, he has this problem. It's an obsession. It's a deep-seated psychological problem. It's a personality disorder that we have here in front of us. Anthony Weiner exemplifies a personality disorder front and center. Narcissistic traits, yes, but many other traits as well. But it's a serious, deep-seated psychological problem.
Part of me that is always at a loss in this, doctor, is the recklessness for some of these stories. I remember then Governor McGreevey, when he was brought down, it was in part not because it was homosexuality, but because he was randomly going to rest stops on the New Jersey Turnpike. Elliot Spitzer with a call girl publicly with people, I mean, security, etc., everyone seeing it out in the open. The recklessness of this. Is that conscious? I mean, these are people smart enough to go up the political food chain, to know, to mitigate risk, but they seem to throw it all away when it comes to, in this case, all commonality being sex.
Well, this is a great point that you're making, because it shows how powerful and how deep this obsession and pathology is. You know better. I mean, all the people you mentioned, certainly they're smart. They should know better. They do. But the obsession, the thought that they could get away with it, the pathology, the sexual compulsion, the obsessiveness, it's so overwhelming and so psychological that that is in fact the dominant feature here. That's what's most important. And I think you've made a good point. It exemplifies how dynamic this whole problem really is.
I want to pivot to another person, obviously even more in the headlines than Mr. Weiner, and that is obviously Donald Trump. For those who didn't see it, David Plouffe, who was one of the engineers of Obama's presidencies in the first and the re-election campaign, he had the following to say about Donald Trump.
We have a psychopath running for president. I mean, he meets the clinical definition, okay? The grandiose notion of self-worth, pathological lying, lack of empathy and remorse. So my point, I think he does, right? I don't have a degree in psychology.
So, doctor, let me ask you, when people use these terms to describe Trump like a psychopath, I got to tell you, I looked up some of the definitions. We're talking about, on the good side, I guess, you're fearless, social influence, etc. But on the negative, impulsiveness, self-centeredness, lack of empathy, and we go on. He checks off every box and then some. I know it's dangerous to try and diagnose from 1,000 miles away, but nonetheless, is this guy a textbook case here of a psychopath?
Well, let me answer that question by saying that psychologists don't diagnose someone unless they really see him in the office and see him personally. And there's a lot of ways that we can do that and be quite accurate at times. But however, in this case, and within the context of political psychology, you're on the right track here. I think that there's so much that we know about Donald Trump, and his behavior and his comments in public over time represent someone who's made aggressiveness and abrasiveness and arrogance into an art form. I mean, he has gone a step beyond what anyone would normally think of as being somewhat extreme or pushy in his own demeanor. He has many of these traits that we're talking about that are problematic. Is he unstable? Is he a personality disorder? I'm not going to say that I'll come up with a diagnostic personality disorder, but his public persona seems to be most problematic, and certainly at the level of being unstable.
And I got to tell you, I mean, this is your world, but when you look at the inability to control, to have any impulse control, the idea of self-centeredness, my God, egomania running wild, and finally, the lack of empathy. In each of those, I've been racking my brain. I've been doing this for 25 years. I can't remember somebody who in any of these categories reaches his threshold, and it's really fascinating when you put it up there just how atypical he is. I mean, we got egomaniacs running wild in every level of government, but when you put it all together, it really is something.
Yes, and you use the word threshold, and I think that's the key word here, because many people exhibit odd behavior, certainly in politics, that's for sure. We know that. However, his demeanor and his behavior and commentary in public is really a psychological study by itself. I mean, he's given us so much in terms of being egocentric, narcissistic, all about himself, demanding, pushy, again, abrasive and arrogant to an extreme that we haven't seen before. And people actually relate to that in a way because the authoritarian personality does relate to a certain sector of society. And he knows that, and he's pushing it and marketing it extremely well.
Well, doctor, thanks for putting us on the couch without even an hourly fee. I appreciate that. That's Dr. Bart Rossi. Nice job. Thank you very much.
Enjoyed it.
All right, everybody, coming up next, a serious topic and close to home. The problems at the Veteran Affairs back in the news with the suicide of a Long Island vet in a VA parking lot. We will speak to Congressman Lee Zeldin, who is on the VA committee nationally, about how Congress is trying to deal with the issues there. Stay with us.